Century ago, a killer turned a star-struck New England girl into the most notorious murder victim in Los Angeles history, the Black Dahlia.
Tony Valdez joins us now with the conclusion to our special report on the 50th anniversary of the Black Dahlia murder. Tony.
Christine, it's important to remember that there are some unsolved murder cases here in Los Angeles that are older and bloodier than this one, but none of them have the charisma of the Black Dahlia case, the story of a beautiful young woman murdered, tortured, sexually mutilated, sliced in half at the waist with surgical precision, and then dumped in a vacant lot in southwest Los Angeles 50 years ago last night. It's as though this murder mystery has a life all its own. A half a century of sleuthing and legwork are locked in the unmarked cabinet that holds the Black Dahlia case. Among the 6,000 pieces of paper is the death certificate showing that Elizabeth Short choked on her own blood, the result of a slash across her mouth from ear to ear, a fatal smile that was literally carved into her face. Detective Brian Carr is in charge of the investigation now. He was born 4 years after Elizabeth Short was murdered. Almost all of the original investigators are now dead.
They, through their investigation, came across a couple of very good, solid suspects. None of them they were able to establish a case on. So, were they close? Perhaps. Perhaps.
There are, of course, other possibilities. Detective Ralph Asdel was part of the huge Black Dahlia task force. Now retired, he worries that someone may have overlooked his reports about a man working in a nearby restaurant.
An ideal place, in my view, to carve up a body, because the restaurants and the kitchen have long drain boards and a place to drain the body, the blood and so forth. And some other things that I'm not free to talk about this time would have led me to believe that this would be a prime suspect.
Whoever the killer was, LAPD psychologist Chris Mohandi believes that he or she wanted the body to be found.
This is a guy who's very much into power, very much into control, and very much into seeing himself as being superior in terms of intellect, superior in terms of morals and values to the rest of the world. And he was arrogant.
Over the decades, there have been all sorts of unofficial theories about the murder of Elizabeth Short. Aggie Underwood, Herald Express reporter and the newspaper's first female city editor, believe that the Black Dahlia was killed by a lesbian. Another theory implicates Cleveland's torso killer, also known as the Mad Butcher of Kingsbury Run. He chopped up at least a dozen victims, most of them in Ohio between 1935 and 1950. By contrast, Los Angeles writer James Ellroy, the author of the best-selling novel The Black Dahlia, believes that it was a one-time killing by a stranger.
I think he had been having awful fantasies of hurting women for some time and had never acted on them. I think the exact right victim and the exact right victimizer met at the exact right time.
Severed is the most recent Black Dahlia book. Elizabeth Short's childhood friend, Mary Pacios, collaborated on it with John Gilmore. They allege that Jack Anderson Wilson was the Black Dahlia's killer. But Wilson died in a fire in his room at the Holland Hotel in downtown Los Angeles in early 1982, before LAPD's legendary detective Jigsaw John St. John could question him. One other scenario for the Black Dahlia murder begins at the Florentine Gardens, a Hollywood Boulevard nightclub that still exists, although under different ownership. Back in the 1930s and 40s, its racy floor shows always seemed to escape the attention of LAPD vice officers. On Carlos Avenue, directly in back of the nightclub, where today nothing is left but a parking lot, Florentine Gardens co-owner Mark Hansen ran a rooming house for aspiring actresses.
And give them a place to stay. Of course, I don't know what went on, but it's not like Sunday school, that's for sure.
Elizabeth sometimes stayed there, and the address book, the one that was found in her luggage with the missing pages, apparently belonged to Mark Hansen. His name was gold-stamped on the cover. Sources say detectives suspected that Hansen knew more than he would ever admit about the Black Dahlia murder and the possible involvement of someone who did illegal abortions for starlets and dime-a-dance girls. When Hansen was threatened with arrest, he allegedly reminded investigators that a certain detective, the brother of a highly respected LAPD official, was also the bagman who collected payoff money that allowed certain Hollywood businesses to stay open. In 1949, the Los Angeles County Grand Jury looked into the unsolved Black Dahlia murder. No one was ever indicted, but the grand jury turned up enough evidence of corruption to force reform of the LAPD. and that may be Elizabeth Short's gift to the city of Los Angeles. Bill Parker was the no-nonsense chief of police who cleaned up the department, but he was never able to clear up all of its mysteries.
This case seems to be constantly coming up. It's never been buried. It's never been solved. But there always seems to be, unfinished business with it. It's a very mysterious kind of thing.
I expect it would be good to close the case, but like I say, I'm not a person that holds a grudge, but I would like to see the case closed.
The Black Dahlia's mother and sister didn't live to see that, but it's intriguing to speculate about what Elizabeth herself might want to say to us about truth and justice.
Why do you portray me as someone who deserved this? I was an innocent victim. I had my whole life before me. My family has suffered. My friends have suffered. Make this thing right. Give me justice. Give me peace.
There is, of course, no statute of limitations on murder. There is a suspicion that there may be somebody out there tonight who knows beyond a reasonable doubt what really happened at the Black Dahlia, and maybe they need to be reminded that they're running out of time, not for getting away with murder, but running out of time to clear their conscience. Christine?
The mystery continues.
Fascinating. All right.
Thank you.
Tony, thank you. A horrifying find in